Hello everybody, I'm the Viking.
And I'm Poppins.
And we are at Chris Point Beach. I think we would call it that by Chris Point Lighthouse. It is a pretty popular tourist destination, but it's remote. And this entire coast is very remote and deadly. And we're gonna talk about that in this video. So let's go have an adventure.
Let's find some rocks.
This shoreline is so deadly that not only did they put a couple lighthouses up, they also put a network of life-saving stations that are about 10 miles apart with halfway houses. About 10 miles that way is the mouth of the Two-Hearted River, made famous by Hemingway. And about 25 miles that way, Whitefish Point. In 1903, they established the fog signal building right there. In 1903, a storm destroyed the boiler that they just built. It's kind of testament to how rough this shoreline is. Poppins and I were exploring 3 of the remaining stations: Chris Point, Whitefish Point, and Vermilion. Our next stop was Whitefish Point and the Michigan Shipwreck Museum. So in 1855, the Soo Locks opened, and that created a lot of upbound and downbound traffic, especially on Lake Superior. In this point, Whitefish Point, is where all the traffic came. 2,726 miles of shoreline, all the factories, all the mines, everything that happened on Lake Superior came by this point, which is why the Whitefish Light was created, as well as the fog signal building and the lookout tower and the life-saving station. So let's go check it out. The Michigan Shipwreck Museum combines the restoration of a 19th century signal and rescue station with the artifacts of shipwrecks, lighthouses, and life-saving stations of the Great Lakes. The museum is at the eastern end of what I call the skeleton coast of the Great Lakes. Over 200 shipwrecks lay in the waters just off the coast. Others dubbed this menacing shore the graveyard of the Great Lakes. It is sobering to view the history of the victims and rescuers, both of whom led an often cruel existence. The presentation and knowledgeable staff allow a curious visitor to slowly immerse themselves in an understanding of the difficulties our forebears struggled with to build this tenuous empire. They were normal people who struggled to push heroically against the unforgiving environment. Their struggle might have been forgotten but for the patient and unyielding work of this museum and staff. While today's world seems chaotic and cruel, it does well to look back and see what we are capable of. For the visitor that critically observes the world, they may just leave with an appreciation of what we can do for each other. This is the boathouse, the motor lifeboat house that was in shambles when they got it back and moved it back here from private property and rebuilt it here. So that's a pretty amazing story. So yeah, kudos to the museum for the restorations that they do and the history that they preserve for us. The storms on the Great Lakes. You can see them coming, you can watch them pop up, but when you're sailing at the speed of discovery, just a few miles an hour, you're not going to outrun them when you have about 100 miles to get to shelter and 50 miles where there's no protection, which is why this area has all the life-saving stations and all the lighthouses. This stretch from Grand Marais up to Whitefish Point has no natural harbors. It has no protection from the storms, no islands to hide behind. So you're at the mercy of the storms when they pop up, and they can be violent. Without the benefit of a weather forecast, there were a lot of people that died. Over 200 shipwrecks out there. Just 15 miles that way is the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, a 729-foot modern freighter that sank in November. So it's a deadly coast. Even modern ships sink there. So now we're heading down the back roads to Vermillion, Michigan. Vermilion's only reason for existence is some cranberry harvesting and a life-saving station. So we're at Vermilion Point, which is a bit of a developed nature preserve now. And getting back here was pretty easy, just a regular old road, kind of sandy, big mud puddles, and if you go through you might get some mud splashed on. Unless you like to be cool. So I used to harvest cranberries out here. So cranberries just grow low on the ground. And you have water around those. Yeah, here's a ditch. Water around those fields where the cranberries are growing, and then you flood the field in the fall, and then you kind of take a paddle wheel, go through the field, and you stir them up, and the cranberries float to the top, and then you just net them in and harvest them that way. Contrary to popular belief, the cranberries aren't growing in the water. And this is one of the cranberry bogs, and there's a ditch right there. You can hardly tell anymore, but they used to harvest it around the 1900s. They had cranberry farms up here, and one of them survived until today. We went by it, but it was kind of closed off. Looks like some people live there, but I don't think they harvest cranberries anymore there. So I guess the cranberry industry up here is done, but we'll probably find some on our walk. So let's go find Poppins. Are you Poppins? Oh, yeah. She's going up to check some things out. She's a great explorer. Vermilion has a long history as a trading location. It gets its name from the nearby deposits of red ochre called vermilion. It's an iron oxide used in art to achieve a red pigment. In 1877, the Vermilion Life-Saving Station began operation. Late in its existence, it was dubbed Alcatraz by some. The training and crew were so effective at Vermilion that they were chosen to demonstrate at the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. The cranberry operation began here in 1887. By 1932, cranberry production had declined and cranberry farming ended. And by 1944, maritime navigation had advanced enough that Vermilion was closed and abruptly abandoned. It floundered in private hands from 1947 to the early 1970s, when it was purchased to preserve and restore. Today it is owned by the Little Traverse Conservancy and is used for research and to protect the nesting of piping plovers. So if you worked at one of the light-saving stations on this coast, there would be 6 surfmen and 1 captain. And one of your jobs was to patrol the beach every night and after every storm. You were checking for shipwrecks, vessels in distress, and sadly, bodies. Back that way is Whitefish Point, about 9.75 miles. And then that way is Chris Point. 1 surfman would go in that direction. Each night, 1 surfman would go in that direction, and they would meet a surfman from the other station. So we're gonna pretend like with her. She came from Whitefish Point, I came from Vermilion, and this is how it would have went. Now, as a surfman, before I left, the captain gave me orders to do a beach patrol, and he told me to meet the other surfmen coming from the other direction, and to make sure that we did our job, they would have given us a token. And this is the exact size of the token they carried. This is a replica of a Vermilion Point token. And my job was to exchange it with the surfman I was going to meet coming from the other direction, so that when I returned, they knew I did my job because I would have a token from his station. We would meet usually at night. What ho? Surfman Viking here. You Surfman Poppins?
Surfman Poppins. Oh, we did our duty. I can show this to my boss.
Yep.
Cool.
And then we take off and go back. See ya tomorrow. Same 10-mile hike on sand. And that's it. This is what Poppins does. You guys know it from previous videos. She collects rocks. And even though I know she's collected these, I know I'm gonna get back in the Jeep, or I'm gonna go to clean it out when we get home. If she hasn't snuck them out of the Jeep yet, there's gonna be a bunch of them sitting on the floorboard behind her seat.
There's some already there.
See, yeah. Probably a brick or 2, maybe even a boat anchor. I'm the Viking.
I'm Poppins.
And channel's Restless Viking, and thanks for joining us for an exploration of the southern coast of Lake Superior along the graveyard of the Great Lakes. So right here is the agricultural product, the wild cranberry. It's not bad.